Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back to Technology Envoy. This is a very special interview we have today. It is interview number 6 with Chris Beskar on camera. And today we have a very special guest, Moray King, who knew Ken Shoulders well. And of course, Ken Shoulders was in a business arrangement with Chris Beskar at Stavatti. So today we're going to reveal a little bit more about this, and we'd love for maybe we can get Pavel to shut his mic off. I think it's Pavel's mic.
But do you want to do
Um,
the presentation to begin with or at the end? The-
no. We'll bring that up. Yeah, we'll do it as we go, Brendan, sort of thing. So let's get Moray and Chris to talk, and we can get going. And so, how's it going, Chris?
Oh, it's going very well. It's been a very exciting past month, to say the least.
Yeah, you've been really busy with all your plans. The SM 920 airliner. I know that last time we talked to you, you got funding for that, and we'll catch up on all the good stuff. But today I have Moray King here, who I wanted to introduce you to, because you guys both knew Ken Shoulders, and this is so awesome.
Right. And I am really curious about Chris and how advanced the technology actually is compared to what the descriptions on EVs that Ken has. He didn't really have control of the propulsion, the steering mechanism. Reminds me of rocketry when you blow up a balloon and you just let it go. That we had such rudimentary knowledge on everything about the new field, this new field. So, what surprises me is hearing about Chris and the aerospace company, and you're actually using propulsion like inertial propulsion or anti-gravity propulsion and steering. In other words, you're very advanced. Is that true? Do I understand it right? I suppose.
Well, you kind of do, yes. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to achieve flight, and of course, we are concentrating primarily on winged aircraft with traditional flight characteristics. But a large part of our future, especially as we move into space travel, is really propulsion that is more exotic. And of course, the exotic vacuum objects are a key element towards, I think, a future interplanetary and interstellar space transportation system. So we're ever since I met Ken, and that was probably back in the early 2000s.
Um,
We've been very excited about what he offered, and for years, we've posted many of his papers on our website, on our server. So they're available to download, and I know quite a few people have. And so he certainly speculated about a lot of things. And I do know some of the individuals who had actually uh, put together tests of his various technology, especially with respect to radiation mitigation, radioactive decay mitigation, such as David Faust. I'm sure you've probably heard of David Faust.
Oh, David Faust and I came out to Irene together. We were neighbors at the time I
Okay,
first started in Philadelphia. So I knew
Wow.
David since '74.
all righty.
And so we worked very closely together at Irene. And David was a hands-on experimenter.
Yes.
That's why Irene recruited him. So, and I was more the software guy, right?
Okay.
But all the equipment needed to be controlled by software, so I was right in the thick of it the whole way as we were doing experiments. So yeah, I was just curious to see how far. I have no idea on secret space program or anything how mature the technology actually is today. If it's classified, right, then obviously they can't talk about it, right? And so that I just have a lack of knowledge of where we are. I mean, what's real versus just stuff that I hear. And so if you could comment on that, how far are we actually advanced?
Well, I think, and this is, I'll just say this is speculation, that the Navy glommed onto it probably after Ken Shoulder's death. And if you kind of look at the timeline of some of the information that came out, especially regarding Navy patents, this was really all after Ken passed away. And I remember Ken telling me that he's had a variety of visits from the Office of Naval Research, and they would come by and chat with them and kind of walk away scratching their head and not quite know what to make of it. And then he passes away, and the next thing you hear, the Navy is putting out a variety of different patents, and some of it may tie into his work. And so I think they were definitely focused on developing some of that technology. I know our pathway was a little bit different, and it wasn't really for military applications at all. It was for spacecraft propulsion and different ways of flying. And Ken was, I wouldn't say he was against the airplane business, because he seemed to love airplanes and helicopters, but he wrote a little paper that you can download that really kind of attacks the business of airplanes and just airplanes in general, and was focused on more of a personal air transportation system. But in addition to that, he had his own flying devices, as you're well aware.
Yeah.
The vehicle is powered by free piston compressors and little itty bitty spinning blades. So there was certainly a diverse array of flying machines that he was excited by and focused on.
He was a hang glider enthusiast. That was his hobby. He liked to launch, and I think the last place where he had his lab, there was a nice hill we could actually launch from. So that was
cool.
no, his dream was propulsion, right? And that's what his quest was. So as far as I know, we got the mechanism of propelling, but no steering. It would just be whatever. All right. I suppose you could steer it by external fields, but that's the extent that my knowledge of how far he got. And he says it's really fundamental. And of course, the transmutation from the strikes, that was huge, because it proves a paradigm shift in nuclear science. And so definitely not popular, but that's where Bob Greenyer and the Russians, their ball lightning and transmutation conferences. So there's a real disconnect between Western science and what they're willing to look at, and how far the Russians have proceeded ahead on this effect, because in a way it's the proof. The ash never goes away. The craters don't go away. The unusual isotopes not readily found in nature can be studied again and again. And so it really had to sort of bird in hand type of proof that once you make a crater from the strikes, you have your proof that you're outside of the standard paradigm of this, or at least the Western standard physics. And of course, the Russians have taken off on new theories of the nucleus and things like that. I'm lucky to have Bob Greenyer help us translate what they're thinking. They're way advanced on their modeling of, and they have much more complexity on their modeling than the simplistic vortex ring, just a single vortex ring. They have the fractal nature of structure and fractal natures of making filaments, vortex filaments, and then spinning those into a higher order filament. And so you can see a mechanism of fractal structure. And Bob Greenyer's all excited about that. And so he gave me a dump at the conference, this last Tesla conference. I said, whoa, they are way, way advanced. It's just isn't their thinking. Well, I'm not sure. Well, how do you know it's all right and everything else? It's just the modeling. But I sure know Bob Greenyer was excited about it. So I guess the fundamental question I have no idea on the quote secret space program. That kind on how far we're advanced. Do we have UFO propulsion and navigation? The other question is like Sala brought me thinking of that. Do we have help? Do we actually have contact? We get accelerated along, but of course, if the technology is gifted to us, then we're obviously restricted on what we can do with it. So having a secret space program idea may be true, but we're really teamed up with them, and thus we're restricted on what can be done and what can be discovered. So it's kind of puzzling. I don't know, when I hear disclosures, I see a contradiction between, oh, I'm disclosing the secret space program stuff. And I says, well, if you're on a real classified project, you're not supposed to be
Right.
talking about it. So I see a contradiction. So I personally don't know what's real or what's not real. So I have no idea how far we advanced. Maybe Chris certainly knows where humans are at with their technology versus uh, versus uh, alien stuff. It's just you see, you can understand my contradiction. Okay,
Yeah.
we're still stuck on the
Well,
airplanes and everything else. We have the charging, like the Townsend Brown effect. We can charge the wing of the B-2 bomber and cut down the friction, et cetera, from ion propulsion. That's still standard science. But to get into warping the space-time metric and creating propulsion, and then anything going into hyperspace, right, I would say that's beyond our technology. But I have no idea because it went classified, I think, in the 80s, right, with the Ronald Reagan program, the Star Wars program. Even they wanted to classify the toroid, the plasmoids that Ken was working on. He knew they were about to, and he told me the story of how he uh, foiled them, so to speak,
right.
because he worked with the. Let me tell you the
Yes.
same story. No, I'll let you tell the story, Chris, because I've been talking too much right now. Go ahead and
Well,
I'll
you
tag
know,
team to you, right?
no, I'm delighted that you're speaking as much as you are. It's great, and I want to hear more. But with respect to the story that Ken told me, is that they had packaged basically his principles and his primary patent for power generation, the charge cluster, whatever, his primary patent. They put it in a book, and they mailed the book. He published his own book and about 50 copies and sent it off to the four corners of the world to the various universities that were of value, and that foiled the patent system.
And so is that Evie, A Tale of Discovery, Chris, that book that you're talking about that Ken Childers wrote?
Well, it could be. I'd have to check the title, but that's the basic story that he
Okay.
explained to keep his what 53-page patent from being classified. So
Yeah. And thankfully he did that basically, because we wouldn't really be talking about him with
Right.
you right now
mhm.
had he not done that, right? So that's very, very important for everyone to understand. Um, the secret space program, I could probably talk more about that than Chris can, because I actually know Dr. Sala. I knew Dr.
Ah,
Robert Wood. I also know Ryan Wood. He was actually in this group. I also know Frank Chili. Frank Chili knew Tompkins the best. He actually brought him out and to the public basically and put him on the Jeff Rent show, the same show that I was on. Frank did tell me something very interesting about Tompkins. Frank went to Tompkins' funeral, and 2 days after Tompkins' funeral, Tompkins texted Frank twice. Now, I asked Frank to see the text and he never did share them with me, but basically, the moral of the story here is that Tompkins used some of his age regression technology or drugs to age regression back and keep him alive, essentially. So this is something that there's a YouTube where we talk about this because Lacey, you remember Lacey actually, she did that fourth interview. She actually talked to Frank Chili personally about all of this, and she talks about it on this one, William Tompkins #2 that we did, and we even revealed the drug company that actually is doing this as well too. So there's that. There is a secret space program. I've done tons and tons of research on it, and the Pius patents. Sort of come out of there, but not really, because I know Paul Laviolette's opinion of the Pius patents because I talked to him before he died about it, and I also know Chris's opinion about the Pius patents because of all the information that you've shared with you and David Wilcock through the years with me on that. And I don't think that you're using the Pius patents for any of the technology that you're doing. It's all Ken Shoulders patents, is it not, Chris? For
Well, it's
anti-gravity and
kind of a combination of things. And if you look at some of the different patents where you really get into a lot of what I've done, we focused on plasmas and really plasma stealth technology and having multi-hulled aircraft. So
double
you'd have an
hull. Yeah.
aircraft with an outer skin and an inner skin, and in between you have a plasma. And that gets into some actual classified work that started long before I started Stavatti. I mean, the reason Stavatti exists is because of what happened with the multi-role fighter program. And
Okay.
basically, we had a program that ended up getting canceled in under the Clinton administration, and they created the F-35 program, the Joint Strike Fighter, which came out of 3 other initiatives. Well, the result, in my opinion, was really not a very capable aircraft. And today the F-35 is being sold internationally.
Yeah.
And but it's really more of a 1970s, 1980s approach that merged a lot of components from a Russian Yak-141
Wow.
design
No way.
philosophy. And it just wasn't very innovative. And so our focus was an aircraft that really could be in production for the next 100 years and be a leading fighter. Well, the advantage of that is now we can produce the original concept in a new package and actually sell it as a next generation replacement for the F-35. So what it boils down to is we could have had the airplane that could replace the F-35 in 1995,
Wow.
but instead we went back to pretty standard tech. And the F-35 has some strong challenges, and they've been identified over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so you could almost say that on the public side, our technology has been restrained by at least 30 years. We're 30 years behind in the public. And I'm talking about the military public. I'm talking if you're in the military and you're working on a B-21 or an F-22 or even an F-47, all those airplanes are 30 years behind where we could be.
Wow.
And so it's just a sad state of affairs. And that doesn't even get into any more advanced technology. This is just baseline of what we could have done for the future starting in, say, 1992 versus the pathway that we took. And the pathway that we took is very, one, it's very brute force, but it also, they're talking about 5th and 6th generation aircraft. Well, most of the airplanes that you see that are advertised as 6th just aren't. They're still using the same approach to stealth technology we had in the 1980s. So that's really a kind of a different mode. And when you get into advanced spacecraft, I'm glad that the Pius patents came out. I mean, there's no question of that.
Yeah.
But there's so many different approaches to, say, controlled nuclear fusion, high temperature fusion and low temperature fusion alike, that are viable. And
Right.
instead of pursuing them, and it's just like what Moray was saying about the nature of Western science, there are significant academic opposition for the advancement of different approaches and different theories of how the universe is put together on a fundamental level. And it's even in the classified world, that's not explored very much. And it's kind of sad. And many of the people who were working on the more exotic technologies in the classified world, they're in their 80s now. Many of them have just passed away. And so there's a real challenge that we're facing of who is going to continue the legacy of advanced technology work.
Right.
So it's really a challenge. Now we're kind of fortunate in Stavatti that we're number one. I mean, we have a background that goes before we founded in 94. Between 94 and 2004, we were extremely active with respect to very specific classified activities. And we didn't even do it under the Stavatti name. I mean, if you like, you look at how you do, how can.
It's just frozen a moment. We'll just wait.
Yeah. It froze up.
Maybe they hit him with the classification beam.
Last time they turned his computer off completely in the group when he was with us when we were recording. He thought he thought that he blew the computer up like it didn't. Yeah.
We missed what you last were saying because your computer.
Yeah, something froze up there.
Well, there's a Ben Rich quote from years ago that basically states, if you're talking about it, you're not the one who knows anything. And if you're not talking about it, you probably do. So, I think it's absolutely hilarious when, you get criticism of Stavatti that we haven't built an airplane. Well, my goodness, we've been around a very long time, and the things we have done, we really can't tell you about.
Yeah.
Now that puts you in a dangerous position because you'd like to talk about some things, but the hammer of the classified industrial complex will come down upon you, and they can put you away for a long time. So that said, with respect to the work of Ken Shoulders, what we're concentrating on is really a private sector, commercial, non-classified initiative. That's what this whole Stavatti thing has been about since really 2004, but more importantly, since 2019 when we acquired our facility in New York. And the question is, like, when you bring a product to market, and there's a huge difference between technology and products, and I think people get tricked, and I know I've harped on this before, but I'll just mention again, our society gets convinced that a new product is a new technology, when you may have technology that has been around or it's matured for a very long time and it's still not being put into the new product. And we're looking at cell phones, we're looking at, now AI is the big thing. This isn't necessarily a new technology. We've had a lot of different machine learning techniques, and that's really what the AI we're seeing today is. It's really not artificial intelligence. It's a type of machine learning. But we've had that for some time, and it's how it's deployed. Now, in the case of what we're working on in the hover car, which has been a pretty neat project, it's not a spaceship, it's not an airplane either, and we're using it as a kind of a center of excellence for the design and exploitation of all these different approaches to you'd say levitation or flight propulsion that are unconventional. And that goes all the way, and I had a great conversation yesterday with really our principal financial backer, his group.
Oh, wow.
And the question is, so how are we powering the hover car? How do we want to do that?
Yeah.
And so there's 5 different approaches. We're going to exploit all 5, explore what we're doing, and come out with something that's a product. But
You talked about
technology.
A 500 horsepower rotary motor, I think, last time with me that had, because the seal is always the problem with the rotaries, and was the made of titanium diboride? Was that
That's correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool because rotaries are awesome. They're like 2-strokes. They make power all the time, right? They're very smooth and whatnot. I know the SM-36 Stelma is a program that you told me to watch for, and that would be the technology leader. And we also talked about 4 different ways to fly the hover car.
Yes.
And I know of 2 or 3, but I'm not sure about the 4th ones yet. And I know that you probably can't talk about that, but of these, where are we with the hover car prototype? Because you guys are working on it. Can you tell us any more about it when we might be able to reveal it? Because, I'd love to reveal it with you, of course.
Well, I debated if we should release some renderings on the show today, and we're not going to.
Oh, next
But
time.
the reason we're not going to is we're still we're still keeping it under wraps. Now we might do something right before Christmas,
Okay.
but we are being pushed extremely hard.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple things coming out before Christmas, well, right around Christmas time. And
Oh my.
the new Stelma is one of them. You got to time these things.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God, that's
and we
awesome.
could do a little show. I mean, I don't want to, I'd be happy to have some renderings on your show. So maybe we should do something right before Christmas. But
Okay.
that
Perfect.
said, we're really being pushed hard, and it's become obvious that this is a very important project for us. And so not only, we have had a fully developed business initiative, the engineering's been ongoing. And with respect to the Ken Shoulders technology, that is really viewed as one of the, I wouldn't say pillars, but almost the pillar of the future of science and our understanding of the cosmos. And so how we combine that with a variety of other electric universe ideas.
Yeah.
So, you have a situation where you're working on propulsion, but at the same time, you're trying to solve the mysteries of the universe. And they kind of go hand in hand, which
They do, yeah.
And it's of course great to talk to people like you, Moray, who've been involved in all of this, and I've heard of you for years and years and years. And I'm glad to finally meet.
Yeah. I guess I could ask the key question, right? The key, I think the key question is the technology for propulsion, inertialess drive. What I mean by that is you can do a hairpin turn and not feel the inertial stress of being slammed against the wall, i.e., you're controlling
Right.
warping of
Yeah.
space-time metric. Well, that's really the key. That's what the flying saucers and all the advanced technology have that under control. Well, that's really the key. You're using, let's say, the zero-point energy or whatever science you want to use to warp the space-time or create artificial gravity. So,
Right.
does your company do that?
That's one of the areas that we're exploring, yes. And so all of, we're trying to continue Ken's work in more of a commercial sense, but it's kind of the same philosophy. And unfortunately, the challenge that Ken faced, and I think I'd explained this meeting at a prior call, we had met with a Nevada-based casino owner who was a close friend of Pete Peterson, as a matter of fact. We had a number of meetings with him. And the idea was we're going to fund Ken's research on a fundamental level. And out of it will come X, Y, and Z, of which one of those, X's was probably propulsion. But the challenge is, even though we had put together this business plan, there still didn't seem to be a recognition of the cash flow of what is going to be the end result financially of this work. And that's what's really sad, because when I look at this, I can see 1,000 different ways that you're going to get a return on your investment. There's no question that exploring the work of Ken Shoulders and charge clusters and EVOs is going to result in a monetary return.
Absolutely.
But to the financial community, especially a community that's pretty much based on real estate. And if you look at the parties that run the world today, they're mostly concentrating on real estate.
Yeah.
And they have no interest whatsoever in this sort of work. And they need it distilled to the point that, what one of the arguments I'll make is ChatGTP and SuperGrok exists to take complicated subjects and reduce it to a level that a realtor can understand. And until we had that level of technology, I don't think this particular human demographic can even conceptualize. It goes over their heads so quickly. And it's very sad, because capital has been locked up and never deployed to really do innovative work. And there's this academia, which serves as a firewall to make sure that anything that might be of significant impact or interest just doesn't get the funding because it just doesn't fit within the paradigm. And we got to sink another $60 billion into building a tokamak reactor.
Yeah. When you got the last interview, you talked about getting funding for the airliner.
Yeah.
Is that also funding for the hover car then as well?
No, that's a separate group. And so what
Okay.
we've kind of done is we've sort of compartmentalized our programs. We have, a variety of new aircraft we're bringing out, and many have started out on the military side, but really the commercial side, the commercial airliner is far bigger than the military programs. And what's
Wow.
far bigger than the commercial airliner is the hover car. And
Oh,
that
really? Wow.
realized over the last, 2 months that, hey, you do the hover car and you don't need to really do anything else. And so
Oh.
there is an interest in, there's a genuine interest in certain segments of the financial community. And these are not in the United States. The US
Yeah.
based investment community is very far behind. There's very little interest in any technology. I'd say you have far better luck in Asia and the Middle East. And really, it's
Yeah.
the Middle East investment community that's driving the advancement of technology in the world. It's not.
Wow.
And of course, what's nice, we touched upon the Russians. Stavatti has a very Russian approach to our work.
Definitely.
Whether we're paid or not. It doesn't matter. Whether I'm making a paycheck, I don't care. We're continuing to work on the projects. And it's not about having flashy equipment or flashy laboratories or it's more of a practical approach. And it's how you can get things done on a very small budget. And but the sad thing is that when you're doing business in America, the cost of doing business just in operations, just this hangar that we have, this facility, it'll eat you alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the concepts of incentives, we have made kind of a declaration now. We haven't received any financial grants or incentives to be in New York or Niagara Falls. We haven't, we received a tax break, but then we learned it was a tax break we paid for. Then we learned that the amount of money we put in buying the tax break cost 10 times more than the value of the tax break. So we canceled that and decided,
Wow.
it's not the thing to do. Now we're actually expanding into states other than New York.
Okay.
Including California and probably Texas.
Okay.
We've got some satellite offices all over. But with respect to the airliner project, we have opened up our joint venture office already for that. That opened up back in June. And
wow.
I'm very excited about that project. And we'll have some great news about that in about right around January 1st. But the airliner project has kind of expanded. And if you've been watching us, we have two different airliners. We have the 920, which is like a 737 replacement, and then the 940, which is a wide body. It's a 400 passenger commercial airliner. And that's designed for replacing 777s and 787s and Airbus A350s. Well, that became the foundation for our tanker project, the 940K tanker.
Yes. Yeah. Fuel. Yeah.
And so we've been focusing on that, and that kind of shanghaied the whole airliner initiative, because for about 3 months we were very concentrating on the tanker, and we still are. And there's talk of a stealth tanker as well, and we do have a stealth tanker design that we haven't revealed publicly.
Stealth tanker. Wow.
We're keeping that quiet for some time, but that's really the conventional side of things. And when you get into the more exotic technologies, we've had, we do regularly get contacted by different individuals, and we formed a very interesting partnership with a party that has been focused on a harmonic view of the universe.
Nice.
And this harmonic oscillation theory really does get into the nature of how the universe is put together, even the fundamentals of what light is, the fundamentals of what gravity is. And it really marries a lot of the electric universe work, the Ken Shoulders work,
Yeah.
and provides what I think is a very good pathway for, like a hyperspace or a warp drive, as well as the traditional anti-gravity. But the real issue is, well, it is a fundamental shift. And
Yeah.
that's the challenge. And it's not coming out of, academia by any means. And so that gets into a whole other world. And I think that we're on the precipice of about 4 different ideas of the universe that are all actually converging into maybe what could be considered the foundation of a unified theory, if you're going to have a unified theory.
Yeah.
And so that's really exciting. And so we're extremely pleased about that. Now, when you come to a product like the hover car, how you make it fly is going to be kind of a multi-generational thing. We're the first generation of the hover car is not going to employ EVO technology.
Okay.
But the third might.
Right.
But the mission is to have a vehicle that can take off and land and not raise dust and be very efficient and allow you to travel at about 250 knots. And the reason I am talking about that speed point is if you look at what has happened with Mosaic and the FAA's light sport aircraft ruling.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of the last few years, the FAA has been doing a lot of improvements to their certification requirements and their aircraft categories, especially for personal aviation. And in July of this year, I think it was July 18th or 17th, they made a breakthrough announcement that basically said that we are going to have a number of airplanes that can be considered light sport aircraft that don't have to go through the regular FAA certification process, the FAR 23, and it's better than the light sport characteristics we had up until now, which limited the weight of the vehicle to 1,320 pounds. It limited really when you can fly at night. It was very restrictive. Today, and this is very important for eVTOLs and hover cars and vertical takeoff personal air vehicles, we can now have an aircraft that doesn't need to be FAA certified in the traditional means. We have a certification category that allows it to operate and to get out to the general public. And this regulation was so critical to really making something like the hover car possible and affordable. And so you can do what you like as far as technology goes, but if you don't have the federal regulatory backing, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
We're very excited about that. And that was really the kickoff for 3 of our aircraft projects, because we're targeting low cost, we're targeting accessibility. And so we got everything from a conventional tricycle gear airplane, which is our SM-150, up to the hover car, and they all fall within the same spectrum of certification. So if you say, what was the real holdup between these programs? It's really a regulatory issue. It's how do you bring these things into play so that you're not spending 10 years of your life trying to get the FAA to say, yes, you can sell this product.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard you say twice in the past with David Wilcock that the hover car will be affordable and approximately the price of a Honda sedan. Is that still something that is in the realm? Or
that is absolutely what we're pushing for. We want to be price competitive with, your Hondas and your vehicles, in under that $100,000 range. Now there's people that want to push it higher because it's an exotic vehicle, but the whole idea is mass production, about 300,000 units a year, and to make it affordable.
Yeah.
Because if you just make it a, if you sell these things, this is one of the big problems I have with the eVTOL business. Most of the eVTOLs you see today, they're all priced at far more than $1 million.
Yeah.
And it's one of the biggest problems with the airplane business is, and it kills the airplane business. It's just out of the price range of
Yeah.
every.
Yeah. So I think I said this to you before. You're going to be like the Henry Ford of hover cars, essentially, is that's kind of the idea with the Model T and making it affordable for everyone. Yeah. And so the power plant is going to be gas powered initially, a rotary, like you talked about different ways, but eventually will we get to the compact fusion reactor as a power supply for the hover car in the
That
future?
is certainly the target. I'd either say compact fusion approach or an EVO approach,
Yeah.
or at minimum something else that allows you to have about a year between refuelings.
Okay.
And that something else has about a 30-year history, and it's been deployed and it's out there, and it's something that we've used in the special access environment to keep certain aircraft aloft for a long time, and
Wow.
it directly translates into space propulsion because it doesn't need oxygen. It's
Right.
it's a thermal electric effect.
Wow. Very cool. That's a cool thing. Yeah. Brendan, we found maybe Brendan, we can just bring up the Pete Peterson ones. We found a couple things, or I found something very interesting that I wanted to show you. And it was found I gotta look at my notes. It was found in Philadelphia.
This is the presentation, is that right, Eddie?
Yeah, but let's just bring up the Pete Peterson part of it, because John's not with us, right? So we're not going to go through that part of it. So the picture of Pete Peterson, and then there was that thing that I'd found. So go back. Yeah, so just so that people maybe don't understand who Pete Peterson was, Pete Peterson was an insider at Area 51 that David Wilcock knew for a very long time. And Chris, I think that you worked with Pete, and at some point, Pete decided to introduce you and David together. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, I've known Pete for a long time. He was introduced to me through people who were working in the Air Force, and there were actually a variety of different CIA Air Force joint programs, and he was in that mix. And Pete certainly knew a great number of people. Did you know him, Pete Moray?
Well, now that you put his picture up, I'm kind of shocked because my answer may be yes.
Wow.
Did he live in Utah
For a while he did, yeah.
in the 80s?
Probably, yes.
Wow. This
Did
is
he?
historic, you guys.
Yeah, he did.
Did he ever mention? Oh, the name slipped my mind. Did he ever mention he worked with David Faust?
Yes. He was when I've been at meetings with David Faust and Pete.
Wow. This is very cool, you guys. Very cool.
I think he even mentioned he knew you.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Wow. This is cool, you guys.
I am kind of shocked because I didn't realize. I knew because the name Pete Peterson is somewhat common. There are other Pete Petersons.
Yeah.
Well,
And so I never realized you're talking about the same guy that I happen to know.
Wow.
Did Vernon Wolf? Did he ever
Yes.
mention the name
Yes.
Vernon Wolf?
a lot. Yes. Vernon Wolf. Yes.
So
I
he
think I have some
was
of.
the one to introduce me to Vernon Wolf,
Okay.
who was doing a consciousness kind of
Sure.
course, consciousness seminar, and he felt that Vernon Wolf's was the best. So we're in a car together, 1986, Dave Faust, me, and Pete Peterson. And we're
Wow.
driving to a conference, I think in Denver from here in Utah. And boy, he just the whole time going down out to the conference, coming back, he was just raving about Vern Wolf's consciousness program and things like that. And then he caused me to say, okay, I want to meet this guy, and he's right here in Provo, Utah. I'm in Orem, Utah, so we're in the same um, uh, area. Wow, it gives me, I'm shocked because it's the same guy because
Yes.
everything you're saying is mad. In any case, I introduced myself to Vernon Wolf, and I said, I cold called him. I just went to his office and I said, because Pete briefed me on what his interest was, and he said, I said, I'm here to teach you about zero point energy, and you in turn will teach me about consciousness. And Vern Wolf was shocked, and he said he closed his door. He says, "Stop all the other visitors," and we talked for about 3 hours.
Sure.
Because
Wow.
he said, "Well, do you know where I was?" I said, "No," but then I asked him, "Do you know where I was?" And he said, "No." So I explained that Pete Peterson, right? We played at the conference here on the country. He raved about him, and he was interested. Well, he says, "I was at a conference on consciousness at the same time out in California. We all agreed, oh, we got to understand zero point energy because the feeling was somehow the nature of consciousness, the nature of your soul, the nature of everything is not in the body at all. It's
Right.
out there in the field, an organized field, and the body's more like a radio receiver compared to
Yes.
what's really going on, and none of us knew much about it,
Hmm.
right? And I'm saying, well, I could tell you about the standard literature in physics, because that's all I said for my thesis. I will explore tapping to zero point energy as an energy source, and I'll constrain my sources to what's in the standard physics journals or the standard textbooks. And there was a wealth of stuff there in the standard that opened up all sorts of possibilities, and that would need to be explored experimentally. And so I had enough source material, but of course it would require an experiment to do. And the essence of the source material said one key thing, and it was straight out of the textbook on quantum electrodynamics. He said the vacuum polarization is the phrase they use in the physics literature to describe the various elementary particles' interaction with the zero point energy. In fact, they're comprised of it in obviously a complex sense. And the nature of the heavy particles, the protons, the charged nuclei, their vacuum polarization descriptions are steep lines of convergence of vacuum polarization. They're not smeared out. Electrons, especially in conductors, are smeared out and they're kind of in thermodynamic equilibrium with it as a smeared charged cloud. They basically reform to something that's in equilibrium. So if you want to activate vacuum energy in a coherent sense, you have to work with the heavy particles. And then later, after learning that much strictly out of a textbook on quantum electrodynamics, this was stressed that I learned of T. Henry Moray a year later. I learned it from Chris Bird, who I was
Okay.
visiting to study the work of T. Townsend Brown because he had files on T. Townsend Brown. So I
Okay.
got invited to his house, and this was in '76. And he says, well, there's a kook out in Utah that can't write worth a darn because he's such a good writer, but this book's obviously for you. He throws me the book, The Sea of Energy in Which the Earth Floats by T. Henry Moray. When I saw the name, that was the big epiphany for me. It says, well, now you got my attention. And so it was some very magical back days. So that was a year after. And here's the thing that Moray stressed: the key to his tubes, his plasma tubes, I got ion oscillate the ions. Moray stressed that and stressed that. And I said, fine, I'll go look at the ion oscillation experiments in the standard literature, in the plasma literature, where they do the experiments with the ion acoustic mode. Why they use the word acoustic? Because it happens to be at a low frequency in a kilohertz, in the acoustical band for our hearing. That's why they use that was, but that's those low energy bands because the particle's so heavy, it oscillates slower just due to its mass. And sure enough, they're recognizing all sorts of anomalies. So wow, this is like a full circle connection. David Faust, Roy Curtin was the lead that brought us to Eyring. So Pete talked about Roy because Roy and Pete worked together later on the Intero machine and things like that to help with healing and that type of thing. And he also taught me about fasting, right? How to detox with fasting. I love fasting every year. So he was into that too. So didn't realize it was the same Pete Peterson until you put the picture up.
I'm so
glad. Now we're coming full circle.
I'm glad you put the picture
and all this. Yeah. So there is still a major disconnect. Not back on the topic of advanced propulsion. I would say when we're in advanced stuff, it's the UFO stuff, the classified that technology, gravitational propulsion. You don't feel the inertial stress.
Correct.
That technology seems like reading Sala and just reading other stuff seems to be, and Stephen Greer stresses it, that we have developed this, and it's likely due to formal contact in the classified realms. That's my guess, my surmise. But it is not for the public. It is hidden away. It's classified. It's using that technology, which makes me conclude we could not get that advance that quickly as far as the steering and controlling of it without the alien help, without formal contact that presumably happened way back in the 50s. You heard the story of Eisenhower and the contact and things like that.
With Val Ford.
So that's my personal belief. I don't have any proof because I'm not privy to any classified stuff. It's just simply, I'm just connecting dots logically. If we're that advanced and get accelerated alone, and the contact's here, and the reason the contact was started is because blowing up nukes and all that was our calling card to say, hey, everybody out there, we're dangerous. And so it was a needed contact. It fits together, and that all this is happening, that, if we just do any standard propulsion, right, maybe a little bit of electrostatic charging to help with ions, and so you can go hypersonic and things like that. That's still in the realm of standard science. Where the scientific community gets off is saying, oh, I can't believe you could actually get some control of the 0 point energy. They have a model of noise. It's just random in the background. And so they don't even apply the obvious point of, look what it says in quantum electrodynamics. Do your experiments with the ions. Do vortices with ions. Do that. And straight out of textbooks, and the evidence is you see it in the literature, the plasma research literature. They see spiking anomalies, excess energy events in the ion acoustic mode experiments. I said, this is like the obvious thing to try. My gosh, I came up with this maybe 75, 76. And then, of course, when Moray stressed it, I said, it's a lot. I didn't really learn about the vortex ring stuff. It was make a vortex ring of ions, right? Which is the heart of the EVO, not just the electrons, but get the ions in that vortex and have it close on itself. Thus, it gets us into the plasmoids. All of Bostic's work on plasmoids. So that became apparent early on. This is about the same time frame, 75, 76. And Foster Gamble talks about having vortex ring visions and everything else. And darn if I didn't have them as well as others that I knew at the time doing the research. Had I known about Homer Simpson, I would have said to God, Lord, the Lord wants us to have donuts on the brain, right? Because everybody's
That's,
having this revelation. And
that's funny.
Foster Gamble said it the best, right? He had it personally, and he made a Strive movie based on his personal revelation of this. He says, yeah, well, welcome to the club. That was on me. And then when I would meet people that were somewhat not even that much into the research, they would have the vision too. They didn't know where to take it. And so I said, wow, that is so cool. So this is all of in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
When we're having this. In fact, that was kind of the theme. The first paper of my first book, Tapping the Zero Point Energy, that paper I presented in 1978, essentially it was my PhD thesis topic, proposal, if you will. I said, here's what will involve the vortex ring. It seems to be involved, and the ion oscillation seems to be involved, and the references to the standard literature on ions being the activator for the vacuum energy, the orthogonal flux model, which really was too complicated to develop, came from John Wheeler, going all the way back to 57 when he wrote Geometric Dynamics in 62, but his original paper, I think, was in late 50s in the Physical Review. So John Wheeler kind of was the source, and he says it's so complicated, and the objections from the physics community was, oh, it's noise, it's random. I asked, well, how can you tap the vacuum energy? He says, you can't tap random stuff. But then Prigogine wins the Nobel Prize in systems engineering. Well, it had to be in chemistry. He didn't have a systems engineer, but he was a systems engineer. My PhD was in systems engineering. That's what my major was. And I said, the breakthrough happened in 1977, where they showed how self-organization can occur in nonlinear systems, and to be nonlinear, far from equilibrium, and have some type of flux through it. And the flux was Wheeler's quantum foam, nonlinear. You could just do a pulse to drive it far from equilibrium, and the plasmas are very nonlinear in their behavior under these circumstances, which takes us right back to Paul Violette. He says that's the key to self-organization is these type of events. And I said, then you go from chaos, it couples into the system, to a self-organized system with excess energy. And then if you start to tap the energy, you're warping the space-time metric. So all the dots connected, boom, 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 very, very, very quickly. And I really, in all the years I presented over and over again, I kind of feel like I need to apologize to the audience for being so repetitive, repeating the same boilerplate slides. I've never deviated from this fundamental hypothesis that I had and that occurred. It was a matter of just looking for the experiments and as well as the inventors who essentially do experiments and stumble on it. They start doing the right stuff, and then you got the suppression. Then I hear it's all been classified. And I said the basics, in my opinion, are not that hard to do, and it wouldn't surprise me if we made the discovery in the 50s. But I said the engineering, that is hard to get control of steering, right? Just the same thing. And then to hear about, oh, we have advanced craft, which are basically flying saucer type craft using this technology. And of course, Stephen Greer really emphasizes that we have it already in the classified programs. It really should be made for the benefit of mankind. And so I believe it when I hear, oh yeah, we have it, but it means if we're that advanced, that contact has already occurred. The deal has been made amongst the various governments. It has to stay classified. And I guess I'll share what I consider a primary good reason for suppression is that, and I think we heard it over and over again, is mankind ready to have infinite energy at its fingertips, right? What could go wrong, right? And so one answer is be careful what you wish for, because until you have a mature consciousness, What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You'll just blow yourself up. You'll just make another weapon. It's like, what's the point of having it if you're going to just destroy yourself? So we're stuck with the conundrum that I think we've all talked about in all the other meetings. We need to have a consciousness transformation in order for the world to receive it publicly and maturely. We can't just use it for weapons and things like that, which I'm sure they have. And I also believe if it was gifted to us by the contact, then they're keeping an eye. You can't really use it. We're have like guiding. It's like guiding parents that are more mature. Says you have to grow up before you're
I,
allowed to have the
I,
toys.
I think that's why the Navy released the pious patents, and that's why, like Chris was saying, it was very important that they did that. Although I don't agree with everything that's in there, it's very important. We have another surprise. I was going to ask Chris when Ken Shoulders and Pete Peterson knew each other, but I found something the other day in the Philadelphia Science History Institute. And Brandon, if you could go to that next slide, I want to show you guys this because this is really cool. It's really hard to read, but it is something that came from Pete Peterson to Ken Shoulders. The date is 1976. And some of the talk there is about a bismuth wound dielectric motor disappearing, physically vanishing. And this was, yeah, just a card that was found in the Science History Institute. So Chris, could you tell us a little bit more about the relationship between Pete Peterson and Ken Shoulders and when they met each other and how much they worked together?
Well, I knew they went back quite a ways, probably long before 1976. So I'm
Okay.
not, I don't recall the exact story of how they met, but I do know that he gave an extensive history of Ken, that he was well aware of who Ken was and had great admiration for him. I love the bismuth wound dielectric solenoid because bismuth wound dielectric solenoids are extremely important to the future of transportation. And we're doing a lot
Yes.
with bismuth. And I've been one of the big promoters of bismuth for a long time, so it's,
Yeah.
but Moray's description of Pete, that's Pete. That's Gary Dean, Pete Peterson. That's the exact standard story. And I had been engaged with Pete since the 90s. So I had many stories extremely similar to Moray's. I mean, I had lived in Idaho. I had actually moved to Idaho because of Pete. Actually, because of Pete, I moved to
Oh,
Idaho.
wow.
And we set up we were in Boise, Idaho, and Garden Valley. And later I moved up to Sandpoint and was up there for a little while. And then eventually moved back to Minnesota. And now I'm currently in California, and we have our facility in Niagara Falls. But
Yeah.
so Pete was a very good friend, and we spoke regularly. Now, as he's a very interesting person as a scientist. We had an extensive support team focused on things that Pete suggested. He was definitely tuned in, to say the least. And the network is vast and huge, and many people may forget him and be easily reminded of who he was. But this particular little note really does summarize a lot of the standard Pete Peterson focus. And
Yep.
the bismuth wound dielectric is that's that right there. Oh, okay. So it was not because we detonated nuclear weapons that we got the attention of other beings. I'll just say that they could care less if we have a pea shooter or a thermal nuclear device. That's totally irrelevant. What got their attention is a bismuth wound dielectric solenoid.
Wow.
Because when you build one of those suckers and you properly deploy it, now you're going anywhere. And
Wow.
so that's the key. It's not that humanity might blow itself up or we might take nuclear weapons to Mars. That's irrelevant, totally irrelevant. What is relevant is our ability to expand throughout the cosmos.
Yeah.
And I'm talking cosmos. I'm talking the universe itself. Can we be 15 billion light years away from Earth and out there? Because it just disrupts the system.
Yeah.
The easiest analogy is what happened when Jesse Ventura became governor of Minnesota? And I happened to vote for him. I was in Minnesota at the time. I lived there. I was one of Jesse Ventura's supporters. I helped get him elected.
I remember him. Yeah.
The official response from the media was by Dan Rather was and he said this on election night when Jesse Ventura won. This is like Fidel Castro riding into Washington, D.C. on the back of a hippopotamus.
Oh,
It wasn't supposed to happen. And if
yeah.
you know the story, the moment that Jesse Ventura was elected and started actually doing the things he needed to do in office, he got a briefing. He was brought, and we had the FBI, the intelligence community, we had CIA ask him, how did this happen? This wasn't supposed to happen. Certain things are not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It doesn't have to do with if you have a nuclear weapon. It doesn't have to do if you're at a certain level of technology. There's just certain things that are not supposed to happen. And what we've been attempting to do at Stavatti, and we're very focused on, is we are working on propulsion technologies without any external help. This is all from people. This is from human beings. This is from first order principles.
Yeah.
This is getting a fundamental knowledge of the universe and applying it to a product. But at the same time, being in a corporate organization that isn't going to forget the fundamentals. And
Yeah.
the fundamentals are free. I mean, these are things that you advertise. And I'll just say, hey, to the entire universe out there, if you want to understand a little bit about exotic propulsion, explore this line right here: bismuth wound dielectric.
Wow. So it's pretty cool that I
Yeah,
found this the other
pretty
day,
cool.
actually.
Rule of thumb: invest in bismuth. You know,
Oh,
There
by
we
the
go.
way, once again, this slide gives me chills. Um,
Yes.
let me tell you the backstory
I
on
like
my
it.
experience to the date 9/17/76. Well, that summer, that's when Dave Faust and I drove and can't remember, drove down to meet Chris Bird and read his files on T. Townsend Brown. He said he had all the collection from before the war. He had the huge collection of files. It happened to be that the Psychotronics Conference #2 was right there in Washington, D.C. And Chris says, I want you to do me a favor. This was like on Saturday. I want you to rubber hose this guy you're going to meet and see if he's for real. And the guy was J.G. Gallimore. The 1976 Psychotronics Conference happened to be in Washington, D.C., where Chris Bird
No
lived.
way.
And then he took us over there to meet them and when I was and watch other speakers at the conference. And my impression was as I was listening to them, I said, what a bunch of kooks. And little did I know, a few short years later, I would be joining them. Because I was nobody else would have me at a conference. They were the only ones that would allow me that would have me speak on the topic of 0 point energy. So we got to meet J.G. Gallimer back then, and he even spent a night at my house years later visiting.
Wow.
He liked to play chess, so we played chess that night.
No way.
And so, but this idea of bismuth wires and things was rare. T. Henry Moray did use that type of material. I don't think it was part of his diode setup, his crystalline setup. He was using bismuth as well, but bismuth wire around a dielectric. That is I haven't heard of exactly that, but it was kind of a magical material. on the research. And there you have Eyring Research Institute,
Yeah.
Provo, Utah. So we were all working there. Roy Curtin brought us in, brought Dave Faust and me in.
Chris,
Wow.
Chris, I was going to ask Chris, when you said some things are not supposed to happen, is that to do with us going out into space? It's not supposed to happen, is that right?
Oh, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, unless it really gets down to a non-government, non-classified, non-system approach. I mean, you have to do it independent of NASA, independent of an Air Force contract. I mean, they'll have you sending. I mean, look at what the main focus is: space launch. And right now, it's a really cool time to be in the space launch business. I mean, I think there's 3 launches coming up this week from Vandenberg just with SpaceX, and they're cool to watch. I love seeing them.
Yeah.
But the challenge is we're just launching satellites, which aren't necessarily the best kind of satellites to be putting into orbit. But we're not going anywhere. I mean, we might go to the moon, but as far as or Mars, but we'll do that in a space capsule. I mean, we're not the whole idea of having a space transportation system that is on the level of what the DC-3 did for commercial aviation. I mean, we should have a commercial space transportation system, and that's what I'm focused on. And it's something that it's just so utterly suppressed, and we're given a substitute. The substitute we've been given is rockets that perform like the Delta Clipper X from back in the 1990s.
Is that the Earth powers that be are doing that, or is it the extraterrestrials don't want us out in space, or the Earth powers that be?
I think the Earth powers that be have just completely aligned with any other powers that be, because it's better for their business.
Yeah.
And if you have looked at the amount of money that, I mean, the big issue is, if you look at the amount, the salary for a congressman, a senator, or the president of the United States, their annual salary does not match the vast amount of wealth that they derive from their office.
Yeah.
You could never, I mean, maybe if you're president of the United States, you should be able to make a couple $1 million, maybe. And they come away with hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I ask another question on the last sentence on the little card here?
Yeah.
Check on nearby Whitestone Ranch for what's that word?
Anti-gravity.
We've got
That's
the
GRAV period, GRAV period.
We've got the ChatGPT to enhance the image and try and summarize what it's saying.
I've read every word. I can read every word.
Also, I got this from YouTube, and they had deciphered, because the guy that took this picture saw the real card and wrote his own notes down, and he talked about the White Star Ranch. I'll send it to you after. It's like about 15 minutes long, and it's really cool, because it basically said that Ken Shoulders is considered the Nikola Tesla of the modern era, which is really cool. But that's where I found this. But he was the guy that actually went and into the in Philadelphia at the Science History Institute. That's where this came from. Yeah. I'll send the little thing to both you guys when we're done here, for sure.
In that area code 213.
I think that's Pete Peterson's phone number.
Yes. What area code is 213?
I don't know.
That's where
LA,
that was his phone
Peterson.
at the time.
LA. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, LA. And LA is what is that? Los Angeles? Does that stand for Los Angeles? Just before Peterson.
I'm not sure, but I think so. Maybe. Yeah. It was a pretty cool find. Moray.
I'm amazed. I'm just amazed.
Me too.
I'm in the thick of it. There's Eyring Research Institute.
Yeah.
For AF is Air Force.
Air Force. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what the first part says. It's got the guy's name, J.G.
Gallimore.
And then there's a 49 that's in and then it says crystal some
Chris,
something.
Chris
Uh,
graphene, crystallographene.
yeah, it could be. Yeah, works for Air Force at yeah, Provost. So were you actually at that institute,
Yeah,
Moray?
I was recruited to work there. That's why
Oh my
I came
God,
out of Philadelphia.
this
So
is
Dave Faust and
insane.
I are friends in Philadelphia. Roy Curtin comes back and interviews me, and what launched me was my first my that presentation in 1978, tapping the zero point energy. But it turned out that they knew of me prior to that because I was friends with Dave, and we were mutually researching this
Wow.
since we met. I think in 76, late 75, 76 time frame. I was alone for a year, uh, trying to make my case and talking to people at Penn or University of Pennsylvania, where I was a graduate student.
Yeah.
And I would give little presentations on what I dug up. And I says, I think there's something to this zero point energy, and it should be explored.
Yes.
And why didn't you tell the engineers that it exists? That was my big amazement that I never heard of it. I'm electrical engineering. I'm friends with the professors at the Moore School of Electrical Engineering, and my master's was in systems engineering, as was my PhD in the coursework in systems engineering. And
Yeah.
when it come time for the proposal for my PhD thesis, I finished all the coursework. I said that was it, tapping the zero point energy. And they said, oh, they rolled their eyes. Can't you do something normal and get out of here?
Oh
I said,
wow.
no, no way. I'm passionate about this. And just then is when I got invited to come to hiring, and they were interested in doing the research. And they recruited Dave Faust the year before, and he was talking me into it. And
Yeah.
Roy Curtin came out and interviewed me and got the invitation, and away I went. So we all came out together. Oliver Nicholson was the third person that came out with us. He is more of a historian on the history of this. So the three of us
Wow.
packed up a big moving van with mostly Dave Faust stuff from his apartment, and we set up. Came out to Provo to be part of hiring. First, we were holed up in the Center Street Motel for about a month, and Dave found an apartment, and all of us piled in there with all of his stuff, and that's how we got started
Wow.
in '79. And so it gives me chills to see this.
No, me too. I mean,
And so
wow.
let me throw one more name. I've mentioned Steve Greer. We all know Steve Greer. Everybody pretty well believe him. Yes, we have a mature uh, programs already been done in the top secret facilities with the technology of the flying saucers. It's all there. It's being hidden from humanity. It's not to be used. It's to stay classified. Uh, my question to the group is: do you believe that? Well, basically, what
I wouldn't be here
Steve,
if I did. I wouldn't be here if I did. I don't believe that. It's time. I think that's why the Navy released the PIES patents going back to 2019
no,
again.
no, I mean, do you believe? My question was: do you believe that there indeed is a classified program that Steve Greer has been talking about
Oh
flying?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I
I
do.
know tons about it. I know
I do
tons about it.
too. I know. I met, in the first meeting, I met Stephen Greer, 2003 conference in Washington D.C. We were both speakers there.
Yeah.
We had a one-on-one conversation in my room, just he and I, right after my talk for about 90 minutes, just seeing me talk to me. And yeah, I'm convinced he's right. And therefore, this very advanced technology is mature, but it's not in our hands.
Yeah.
It's in the government's decree. It's not for us to have right now. And so okay. So we kind of agree on the lay of the land. What are the dynamics going on? Um, that we have the technology in top secret form, which is a true propulsion and maybe even hyperspace. Now, I'm going to have to mute while this phone rings, but I'll let you guys talk. Let me mute out.
Cool. Brendan, what else do we have for slides here? I think we have, if you carry on from this point, yeah, so Chris, we can talk a little bit about this because you sent me a picture, which we're going to see in a second, from this conference. And this was in, where was it, in Maryland? Yeah.
Yeah, this was the big Air Force Association Airspace and Cyber Conference. Stavatti was an exhibitor at that, and we're exhibiting next year too. We've already secured our booth space, so we are there.
Cool.
It's a 3-day conference, and it's really one of the biggest aerospace defense shows in the United States. And so we have a booth, and our models are on display, and we're giving pitches and presentations.
Yeah.
And
and you have our cardboard, what or
our data cards, yeah.
Cards. On different, are they on the different aircraft and such? Is that what they are?
Yes.
Is it possible to get you to send some of that stuff to me, actually?
Of course, sure.
And maybe even a model, if you would, of the SM-39. That's my favorite plane.
Sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I think this next slide is actually the picture that you texted me a while back, on what we were just talking about, Brendan, if you can go to the next one. Yeah.
Yes, that was our booth at the AFA show. That's correct.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, that would be totally awesome. I can actually remember right at the very beginning, David Wilcock talked about having a little model of the hover car sent to people at the very, very beginning. But this is so exciting that by Christmas time, we should be talking more about the hover car and seeing some information. I mean, this is 4 years now, more than 4 years actually, that I've been connected with you at Stavatti, and you personally for a couple of years now. It was actually Dr. Depak that put me in contact with you. I left a phone message and he called me back. We had a nice conversation about things. I actually asked him at one point, I said, so this changes everything, I said. And it was really funny because he didn't answer for like seconds. He just didn't say anything.
Right.
And then he said, yes, it does. And then we basically ended the phone call, and that's when you had texted me saying, here I am. And it was February 8th of 2023, I think, when that all happened. And I'm so fortunate to have contact with you so that we can bring all this to the public as well, too, right? Yeah, so I think the next slide, we might have another slide here, Brandon, of the hover car. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, we'll go to the hover car one. This is the titanium diboride material that we talked about. And the reason why I brought this up was it talks about a DARPA. Did you present this to DARPA, or did it come out of DARPA, or what?
Well, we did. And so it's interesting. So it didn't come out of DARPA. This is out of Stavatti and out of the public sector.
Okay.
So most of our aircraft are using a foam metal sandwich structure. We've gotten rid of traditional stringers and spars and that sort of thing, the way airplanes were built since the 1930s, and like the B-17 all the way up through the standard approach for Boeing airliners uses this. And so this is very similar to honeycomb structure.
Yes.
Conceptually.
Yeah.
But it's using a metal foam. And so it's kind of like a composite airplane or a surfboard in the sense that you have a foam core and you have skins. And so this is our approach.
Are the skins and the core materials, it's all titanium diboride, it's just in the middle, it's a more porous structure?
Yes, and the same approach with aluminum. You do it with aluminum foam or a titanium skin and aluminum foam. So there's different combinations depending on the type of airplane.
Wow.
And this is good for propellers and gas turbine engines and all kinds of things. And automotive use and many applications. And so this particular response, we had a meeting at DARPA headquarters with the head of DARPA Aeronautics at the time.
Okay.
A couple of years ago. And he said, gosh, we have been wanting to do something with foam metal sandwich for a long time, and nobody's been supporting it. No one has really stepped out and said they wanted to do it. And we said, well, we've been working on this for years, and this is something that we could respond to. And so DARPA came out with this solicitation back in 2024 after our meeting in 2023.
Okay.
And so it was an exciting meeting because we had Dick Guild there, and Dick had known Pete, and we had Admiral Charles W. Moore Jr., who was there at the meeting too, and
I know who that is.
Representatives.
Yeah.
And so it was a neat opportunity. There's a few different things that we can work with DARPA on, and this is one of the technologies. So, after we responded, we posted this and said, hey, we responded to this DARPA requirement. Now, the challenge with DARPA is that it's not really a commercialization type initiative. It's really more research and development. And so, we're going far beyond that. This is how our airliners are built, and general aviation airplanes. The hover car can be built this way.
Okay.
But it might not be. So we're keeping that under wraps too. But this is a really neat way to make vehicles. And what's cool about it is it allows you to produce vehicles very affordably. It's almost like an injection molding approach rather than when you're dealing with composites, there's so much work that needs to be done, often hand layups. You can have machine layups, but it's such a complicated process. And while you get weight savings, the costs can be phenomenal to have high temperature composites.
Right.
So significantly less expensive and a lot less hands-on labor cost. So.
Wow, that's interesting. You mentioned DARPA. John Hutchison was going to join us, but we'll get him on a next interview with you. John knows the guy that runs DARPA. His name is Peter. And John actually put me in contact with him at one point here, so it's kind of neat. John was actually brought in personally by Ronald Reagan, he told me, to work on the Star Wars program, SDI, which was the missile defense program back in the 80s, essentially, that I remember even when I was in high school and stuff, basically. And I think, actually, Brendan, you could show that SDI cover page that John sent to me, which was part of his package from the SDI program. It's at the beginning of all these slides, I think.
Beginning of these slides, okay. So
yeah, we had some slides prepared. So this is it here. Yeah, we can actually go through. You can go to the front of them there, Brendan, if you want. And we'll show John Hutchison and Pete Peterson. We had John's name here because we thought he was going to be in the interview. There's a great YouTube, or 3 YouTube parts where these guys have a discussion. And then the next one, Brandon, is this is the SDI cover sheet that John had sent to me when he was brought in by Reagan. And I think the next one might be Moray's book. Yeah, we brought that up to show everyone that Moray has written multiple books. This book we've done 4 shows on, including one with Moray, or a couple with Moray. Moray, what are the names of your other books as well too?
So the original book was Tapping to Zero Point Energy, and basically they were often on the conferences I would write up a paper to go in the proceedings. And so about every 10 years I would collect those papers, and they would be the chapters of the book. And so this is the second book. Quest for Zero Point Energy. The third book was The Energy Machine of T. Henry Moray, and I was destined have to write that book. And what happened on the same 2003 conference, I presented all the slides I had on the information on T. Henry Moray, and people right after were begging me for copies of the slides. So the so that book And so I said, okay, I'll annotate every slide and make a book out of it. And then the second half of the book was a dump of all my references that I gathered from the libraries because I was doing most of my work in the 70s and 80s, well before any internet.
Yeah.
And so I like the way Tom Bearden did his collection of references. He would annotate them, make a summary, a little summary paragraph after reading the paper. I would do that and then
Yeah.
have it in my file. And so the second half of the book was the summary annotations of all the references that I gathered in the 70s and 80s to support the thesis on tapping the 0 point energy. And then the final appendix of that was, of course, Moray's patent, electrotherapeutic device, but that's where he put the coverage of his tubes.
Right.
The tubes he actually used in the device. He arranged to at least put them in that patent, which was granted. So that was and then the fourth book, Water, the Key to New Energies, about 10 years of research looking at the people claiming running cars on water using the electrolyzers. And most people think, oh, we'll make hydrogen and then we'll burn the hydrogen.
Yeah.
And looking into that, I says, well, I know straight up chemistry, you're going to cost you more energy to break apart the water than you'll ever get back by burning it. And moreover, and this was even a more important point, internal combustion engines, where you burn your fuel, make heat, and the expanding air moves the pistons, are incredibly inefficient. 25%.
Yeah.
You're lucky on a super engine if you even approach 50%. You're losing most of your energy as heat. So it's truly, truly anomalous if you can run these things on just using water and electrolysis type of thing. I never really took it seriously, the Brown's gas experiments and things like that over the years. To me, it was just straight up electrolysis, nothing special here. In fact, I was kind of indignant, right? I said, well, how dare you present a standard technology at our Kook conference? You got to be really far out. And so then I heard Larry Ohio, I think 2005. At the Salt Lake Tesla conference, he presented a very compelling experiments that he was observing for it. I said, okay, that was a really great presentation. I'll look into it next year. And so I thought, well, maybe somehow in the electrolyzers, we're activating 0 point energy and we're shaking apart and getting more hydrogen out, and I don't have to provide all the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't take long to find out these things are hardly making very much hydrogen at all. To mimic a car, and how much hydrogen you need to approximately mimic what our gasoline cars can do. It was like 350 liters a minute. It was incredible, uncompressed, right? It's uncompressed hydrogen. I said, there are these electrolyzers, maybe 10, maybe 20 on some of the good ones. They want to run trucks, liters per minute. They're not even close. There's something else going on.
I can tell you that in the secret space program called Solar Warden, and out of William Tompkins' work, that they have ran trains, planes, spacecraft, submarines, and everything on hydrogen and water separation. That is a technology that was developed at TRW in the largest think tank that's ever been conceived in the world, that all was connected with William Tompkins, basically, right? So they have done that already. Yeah. And actually, Carmen, who's in our group, Carmen's father has technology that can produce enough hydrogen to run a car easily.
So I'll tell you the surprise, and that's what the 10 years of research and I compiled it into the book. And the last 2 chapters of the book are the important ones because that's when all the dots connected together.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hydrogen. That's the lion's share of the energy moving the piston.
Okay.
That's the big set. It's not hydrogen at all. Hydrogen happens to be made or something else coming off the electrolyzers. And I didn't really learn what it was until 2015.
Okay.
And basically it is nanobubbles that are very, very strong. And when they get into the plasma of the internal combustion engine combustion event, plasma surrounds them, and these bubbles, they squeeze in to make the torus vortex ring.
Yeah.
And that is an EVO essentially.
Yeah.
And there's millions of them in the combustion event.
Yeah.
And they take off like self-accelerate in every which way direction, and they move the piston by the propulsion event that Ken Shoulders discovered.
So
And
it's
that was
EVOs.
it's the EVOs that are
Yeah.
made in the plasma event. And it finally cemented in when I found the reference that says every single electrolysis event, the way it works is the bubble starts to form as a nanobubble of hydrogen, gradually expands to a microbubble size,
Yeah.
bursts open to free up the hydrogen. And all the electrolyzers that were magically producing excess energy, they found the means to scrape off those nanobubbles at the nanoscale size. And
Yeah.
what Ryushin Amasa discovered, and I learned about his work, it was the next to last chapter in the book where I write thunderclouds into 0 point energy. When you have that charged up, and the reason the nanobubbles are strong uh, uh, is because they cocooned in that charge. And there was a big controversy in science that nanobubbles, our Western science says they can't exist because they said it's impossible because they were using a weak hydrogen bonding model for the membrane of the bubble, which is like the surface tension on water. Right?
Yeah.
They're very weak. He says that cannot hold together under severe curvature. That when you were down in the submicron scale, that thing just the hydrogen bonds could not sustain that curvature. Therefore, they can't exist.
Yeah.
It took the Japanese research in nanobubbles. They were studying nanobubbles of oxygen to prove that they even exist. And what the Japanese did in 2006, they used a laser backscatter under a microscope where they could track individual bubbles. And thus, 2010, the scientific community reluctantly accepted the existence of nanobubbles in the Western science. That's how late it was. And in a way, I didn't know any of this until 2015.
Yeah.
So I was late to the party, right? And that's when all the dots connected. And so the next to last chapter in uh, Water, the Key to New Energy, is about how the nanobubbles, and it connected all the dots across everybody's electrolyzer project. They found a way, turbulence, blowing air, all sorts of ways, vibration, get those bubbles off the plate early because they cocoon in that charge. And then the Japanese from Tokyo University, the professor there, that's who Ryushin Amasa, the inventor, went to understand what did I make. Omasa gas is what he called it. He thought he was a unique one. And, and sure enough, they had the explanation on nano bubble technology. When you cocoon a net charge inside the bubble, right, water being a polar molecule will naturally orient towards the net charge on the inside. And so the membrane locks in. It's right there in the Japanese patents. The membranes lock in very, very strong as it gets attracted symmetrically to the interior proton in this case, if it's coming off an electrolyzer on the hydrogen side.
Yeah.
And so and now and then it's well known now. It's actually standard science to say this is the way it happens on all electrolyzers. The bubble will gradually grow, burst open, and now you have your hydrogen.
Yeah.
And so what the people were doing in all their experiments historically to get the net result, they found a way to get those bubbles scraped off early, get them off the plate early. And now you had a very, very strong substrate to be the form or the template, right, that can convert over to the EVO.
Yeah.
I need a symmetrical charge. Ken Shoulders used a symmetrical charge of liquid metal, right?
Yeah.
So this was your symmetrical form. And then once it's in a plasma environment, they convert over the EVOs. And I said, there's one dot that I want, I told him to this, or I can't believe his name slipped my mind. Who does the SEM studies on the plasmoid strikes. just
Scanning
okay,
electron microscope.
Like
well, yeah,
Bob
well,
Green?
yeah,
No.
Bob Greenyer. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm terrible. I'm getting anyway. But Bob Greenyer said, "Here's the challenge." Said it's well known when you spray some water mist in an internal combustion engine, you end up having more power exhibit.
Right.
Yeah,
Right?
that's correct.
And that's well known. And the downside of it is that when you eventually examine the piston and the cylinder, they're all cratered up, right? And then you're damaging the piston. I says, well, that's not necessarily bad news. Those craters are from EV strikes, EVO
That's
strikes,
right.
right? And so
Yeah.
Bob Green, you sacrificed the generator, really cratered it up, and then analyzed the metal
Oh,
for plasmoid strikes and see if you see transmutation in those craters.
and did he?
That'll connect the final dot. No, I just suggested it
Oh, yeah, yeah,
as an
yeah.
experiment. I
Oh,
said, let's connect the dots on this one,
we could do
and
that.
well, you can down. Yeah, it's easy to get the metal, and then you say, here, Bob has the SEM, right? That's
Yeah,
expensive equipment.
yeah,
Here, analyze the metal, and then we connect the final dot. I can go right back to the water projects to say something so simple, something that's been observed for years, and now we have it. So what I really liked about the water project the best of all the quote ZPE devices or free energy type devices
yeah,
is you're only harvesting a pulse at a time. Right? Basically, one plasma pulse drives the piston down for one downstroke and extinguishes.
yeah,
You're not building anything up like you would build energy up in a vortex and have control problems at all. You would have it. And granted, I would look for if the particles are too big, the EVOs are too big, then you will indeed get cratering, as we say, but we can work with smaller ones. The smaller they are, then you could have a sandblasting effect, like smoothing, like sandblasting, as opposed to cratering.
yeah,
And so that's where naturally we would explore this technology to make it robust. But in order to explore it, we need engineers aboard. And of course, they don't believe any of this stuff. And so it's
yeah,
hard to, in fact, I target the engineers, right? So it could be that simple. It's a safe device. That's why if we that could be the repeating experiment. You're not going to have any problems with runaway and melting the machine and
yeah.
having too much energy. You don't have any of those problems, right? And then this would be the realm of experiment. And of course, a
That's a great
history of
idea.
suppression on people that are claiming water, or powering cars or generators. You got all the suppression stories on that.
Yeah,
Right? But this one is good
Stan
for
Mars.
the public to do. Stan, of course, being the most famous because he was really a great speaker and publicist. And Steve Meyer's still alive.
Oh,
I
wow.
told Chris Bake at the other meeting, I says, you got to make friends with Steve Meyer, right? And, I actually tried, I did talk to Stan when he was alive. We had phone conference. I did meet him at the conference in the 90s.
Yeah,
And it's all revelation coming to him, right? Oh, he's just flooded with information. He says, you're on the right track. You're what you're calling the universal field. There's a name for it in standard physics. He says, just look up 0 point energy, right? It's the
it's the ether.
same idea as the ether, but the
Yeah.
ether is so much more dynamic than the original hydrodynamic model from the 1800s. It's
Definitely.
basically a virtual turbulent plasma model for the ether,
Yeah,
with the energy flux entering and leaving in the quantum foam. So it's Wheeler's model. That is such a richer ether for self-organization, for energy too. So the people, as the different inventors come up with basically a polarizable ether, which means it's
yeah,
comprised of microscopic charges. I said, there it is. That's Wheeler's quantum foam is that. It's
yeah,
electric plus enters and leaves. You have your dynamic ether. You have everything to fulfill the self-organization requirements of Pringagine's system, which is exactly Paul Laviolette's point on
yeah.
his theory, doing that same self-organizational dynamics straight out of systems theory, straight out of the
It's
Nobel Prize winning work of Prigogine, Ilya Prigogine. So that's what allowed me to make the case. It's just not noise with the 0 point energy. You basically have a turbulent plasma, virtual turbulent plasma model for the ether. And boy, is it powerful. And then now you have the energy you need to warp space and get to the dry propulsions. So all the dots connect nicely. So the last book, I was really hoping it was it, because it being finally we have a repeating experiment.
Yeah. And
Or,
we should go through some of that last book and some of those last chapters in the group and do some recordings with that.
yeah, the last two
Yeah.
chapters that's
Yeah.
where I broke through. I was meeting a lot of people, and Mark Leclerc, in particular on cavitation. I learned so much about that, and proposing every year another hypothesis. Well, maybe this idea applies, or maybe this idea applies, tying the 0 point energy to it. I knew there was something else besides hydrogen. I needed the hydrogen. Is really convenient to make the plasma in the combustion chamber, so I could get the plasma event. So you don't need much hydrogen at all to make plasma. Now you will need a lot to propel the piston by hot air if that's all you have as your energy source.
Yeah.
So there you go, and so all the dots connected. 2015 was my big year. I presented at the conference on future energy, thunderclouds and the 0 point energy in 2015. And then 2016 was the work of Walt Jenkins, who said maybe there's even an easier way. We don't even have to do electrolysis. That's always my hope on his contribution. So I became friends with him. That happened in 2016. He recently passed away, I think.
Oh, okay.
2023 is when I presented. In 2022, he passed away.
Wow.
And so I still hoping it in. What I realized, we don't really have a lot of talented experimenters or experimenters at all that really want to play around with it. And if
Like
you HHO, I'd say the peak of HHO was 2009 when I look historically, because all in 1 month, November 2009, Halloween, just before it, that's when Ryushin Omasa announced his invention to the world. And then 2 weeks later, I think it was Steve Eaton that had long cylinder tubes where he had a very narrow gap in his electrolyzer. There were concentric cylinder electrolyzers, but the gap was so narrow, the turbulence of the gas flowing up would scrape off the nanobubbles. He was claiming closed loop self-running, right, from his device. And then there's a suppression story on him.
Yeah.
And so that's all in the book. So as I didn't go ahead.
We're very, very lucky, and you're a legend in this field, and we're very, very lucky to have you, but also that you wrote all these books, because like this book, like you said, it compiled a bunch of papers that you had done in the past, and they're very relevant even today. Like the last one that we did, the last chapter, I think, in this book that we did was absolutely totally relevant to everything that we're talking about, with EVOs especially, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that was, that was the contribution. The contribution of oh my gosh, can't believe
the guy's name.
I keep slipping names.
Okay. It'll come to you.
Well, it's our featured guy we're talking about today.
John Hutchinson?
No, the guy that makes the EVs.
Ken Shoulders.
Ken Shoulders. I can't
exactly.
Slip. Yeah, terrible Sunday for my brain neurons today. Ken Shoulders cemented in basically the ball lightning, the EVO hypothesis. He cemented in with the transmutation. Then we have the Russians doing it. Then we have, look how easy it is to do it with water. And so I was really happy with that as the repeating experiments, because you avoid all your issues that the other devices had when you build things up in a resonant plasma system, and it just keeps building and building.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's very difficult to do. experimentally because you just can burn things up, right? And
Yeah.
so I was friends with Paul Brown, who did the repeat of the Hubbard work, and of course mimicking Henry Moray's principle, trying to do it in a resonant device, and he really struggled with it. In fact, I could tell that story if you want. The Paul Brown. Do you know Paul Brown, you guys?
No.
You do it right. He was a good speaker too. He came to the conference.
Chris, did you know Paul
No,
Brown?
Paul Brown.
I know of him. I don't know him.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, well, he's kind of famous because of nuclear battery, 5 watt nuclear battery. That's what they were going to
Okay.
produce for sale. And then all of a sudden I found out, about 2003 at the same conference that he was killed. His cars were sabotaged, right? And he had a hobby of street racing, right? Had I
Okay.
known that, I would have read the Riot Act to him. You're doing all this experimental work for 0.8. What the hell are you doing out there like a kid racing in the street with a race car, right? That's crazy, right? I would have, I would have.
You
I
might
would
you
hit
might
him
have to
between the eyes, right? Saying,
you
wake
might
up.
have to hit me with that one too,
Yeah,
actually.
I need that advice.
Yeah, that's all I've done all my
And then
life is
my friends that
racing.
ride motorcycles getting into accidents. Oh my God! I
Yeah.
said, you got a bigger task afoot. Don't risk your life on that stupid stuff. You got a big
That's
job to do. So he
that's
was
true.
successful with it. He finally, first remake, Hubbard, resonant nuclear battery wasn't hard to explain. It was just like Moray's principle, right? And I
Yeah.
agreed with what he was saying. Oh, I just use using weak radioactive material. Moray loved to use radium, readily
Yeah.
available. You can make glow in the dark paint. Back then, you buy it at
Back
the
in the
chemical
day.
supplier. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
as much as you want. Now they're draconian. You can't get that.
Yeah.
There's one interesting thing about radium. It's an alpha emitter, and therefore, as it emits those particles, will start to drag the electrons away to leave you with a residue plasma that's an ion-based plasma, right? And it's the ion acoustic oscillations we want. And so it was a cheap way of making the plasma without having to provide any input energy at all to make it. And so
Wow.
that was the key to the device. And so Paul Brown would use radioactive material to make the plasma, and it was one Curie source, right? It was really weak
Right.
for Paul Brown's replication. And I asked him, I was in the mid 90s, we were at the conference together. We shared the cab back to the airport together, and we talked a long time uh, in the cab and at the airport before our flights. I said, how many people call you on this? Listen, you're using that weak radioactive material, one Curie, and if you do equals MC squared and the amount of material you had, the best you could get at 100% efficiency would be 5 milliwatts. And how many people call you on that? And he says, well, the short answer is maybe 1 in 100 if I'm talking to the normal audience. Maybe I'm talking to nuclear engineers. Maybe I'll get maybe 1 in 10 and spot the discrepancy. But that's not the big story. This device I was trying to make, we were trying to make a 100-watt device off
Oh,
of
wow.
it. Same says, and the problem was it wasn't stable. The very thing I brought up. It's not
Yeah.
stable. I would get the thing at resonance and we just build up maybe kilowatts worth and burn it all up, burn up the
Yeah.
wiring and things like that. We were struggling with that. So the company, we decided let's just keep it at a low scale. I can stabilize it under 10 watts. Why don't we sell that as a product, right? That's a 5-watt nuclear battery. You can use it in buoys, and there's plenty of use for that. And we're getting it out as electricity, so we don't have to worry about the heat conversions that you use in typical nuclear batteries, right? This is straight up as electricity. And we'll put that on the market. And boy, did he have suppression problems and threats. He had a letter out to the community. Look, they firebombed my mother's car as a warning to me to cease and desist.
Yeah.
So he was coming under pressure for something. I said so small because when I met him on that trip back from the airport, I said, "Wow, I really think you're going to pull this off because it looks harmless." You've disguised it. Oh, it's just nuclear energy. It's only 5 watts,
Yeah.
right? And so, why would anybody? It was small. I could get it nice and packaged. Why would? And I said, you're going to slip it into the society without any suppression on 0 point energy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the powers that be aren't stupid, so they were wise to it, and so then there's the story of the sabotaging, cutting the brake lines in the two race cars, and the reason they knew it, he wrecked the one, or they killed him. The other one, the brake linings were cut too in the other car, and that
Also,
was
that's how
the
they,
evidence that it was a murder.
yeah.
And then and Fitzpatrick, I think he had a business partner who he was scheduled to talk at the Conference on Future Energy in Washington, D.C. that year. And that was he gave the talk. That's when I talked on the T. Henry Moray device,
Okay.
and all the requests for the copies of the slide motivated me to do the book. And that's where I first met Stephen Greer.
Yeah.
And I said the key to getting this through is disclosure, right? I would completely agree with Steve's approach and massive replication.
Yeah.
And the water projects, I said, here's one that doesn't have the issues of building up too much energy. The HHO community loved it. 2008 during the recession, everybody was playing with electrolyzers,
Yeah.
right? And it was popular. Garage guys could do it, right? And now that we know the fundamental principle, I go back to Archie Blue. He had a patent in the mid-70s. Oh, I blew air through it, right? And people couldn't understand why. Well, in hindsight, we know why. We can scrape off the bubbles, right? Get the nanoscale and
Um,
and so all the dots connected on why these esoteric attempts by inventors worked. We stressed a very narrow gap, right? And of course, the turbulence of the gas coming off scrapes the bubbles off. Oh, I need to vibrate the machine and my plates in the kilohertz range. Well, I'm creating a mechanical vibration there and
yeah.
get those bubbles off. So you could, in hindsight, right, you could turn around. Why were these inventors looking into it?
So,
Right?
so Chris, are you guys doing any HHO stuff at Stavatti?
Well, when you get into the whole situation that you mentioned with Paul Brown, one of the we know who funded him. Was a personal friend, still is, and it's well, I should say one of the parties that funded him. But we're very familiar with that whole story, and that ties into some of the other propulsion techniques I discussed with respect to radioisotopes.
Oh,
So the radioisotope use of radioisotopes as a fuel and how you do it in a manner that it's alpha emission, it's not dangerous, it's easy to shield. You can generate the energy levels to power an engine. Of course, I love the idea of the 5-watt little battery. That's great. That's awesome, and I understand why that was suppressed. I mean, one of the most dangerous groups to get into right now are anything that counters Everready or Duracell or any of the small batteries. I mean, the battery business is gargantuan. If you go to
yeah.
any grocery store and even it's just amazing to me that rechargeable batteries haven't caught on as much as they should.
Yeah.
So that's a great approach. What we're doing is very, very similar to that. And so if you could imagine a hover car being powered by that kind of technology, that changes everything a great deal.
Yeah.
And so it's a very dangerous situation. No, I was never able to meet him because he died before I could. But but he was in I think Caldwell, Idaho, quite a bit. Wasn't that up in Caldwell or something like that where he died actually? But
Wow.
in any case, so there's this network and group of people that Moray knows that I've
Yeah.
interfaced with on one level or another. Part of the issue with that particular technology is there were a lot of other parties attempting to duplicate it, and they were creating patents that never were submitted or really applied for, and it became there were just some challenges where the legacy of that technology was. But as far as what we're doing, we have a different approach to that that really gets into how do you power up even a gas turbine engine using that kind of technology. So it's certainly definitely something that we're very focused on. And the challenge that we faced in this whole industry is you basically have people working on it on their own. You don't have major corporations funding the research and development, at least not openly. And so that's kind of the difference with Stavatti. And I would say that a lot of our engineers are not traditional American engineers. They're either from Eastern Europe. I mean, my wife, for instance, she's from Serbia. She's a Serbian electrical engineer.
Oh, wow. No kidding. I didn't know that.
You just don't, and working with Russians, working with, other cultures, the Greeks. We're doing a lot of stuff in Greece, now as a company.
Cool.
And so it's sad what has happened with the Russian-Ukraine war. And if we're on a lot of levels, from our standpoint, I've been traveling to Ukraine for many years. So was Pete Peterson.
Yes.
It's interesting. I think I mentioned in the past when I went to the major Institute of Technology in Kiev to talk about scandium aluminum and setting up scandium titanium and scandium aluminum. They had asked if, were you sent by Mr. Miracle? And they were referring to Pete. And I said, yeah, I'm friends with Mr. Miracle. So he's
Mr. Miracle.
So this states, so what we're doing is we're bringing on exotic thinkers and giving them a paycheck. And so that's the whole idea. You actually employ people to work on these technologies, and engineers typically will work on what you tell them to work on. If you're paying someone to work on this technology, they'll do it. The challenge is most companies don't pay you to do these sorts of things. So what's cool about we have our traditional airplane business, which is very focused on traditional airplanes. Now there's advanced technology that goes into those airplanes, but on the propulsion side, having a future for spacecraft and personal vehicles that use these different technologies. And it's just delightful to hear the marriage between exotic vacuum objects and water as a fuel. That's fantastic, and so I'm so glad that we connected, Moray, and I hope to have you participate in some of the things we're up to.
Oh, wow, there you go, Moray. So probably just about time to wrap it up. We've been going for quite a long time now, and I really thank you, Chris, for being here, and Moray. I'm so looking forward to next time, and we'll probably try and get John in. We'll get Moray back and get you guys talking more about Ken Shoulders and maybe the hover car. Might see a little bit of stuff on the hover car and all that good stuff. And maybe, Chris, you could just stick around once we shut the recording off, because I'd like to introduce you to someone that's part of my team, actually. So again, I thank all of you guys for being here, and this is just wonderful. And the fact that Moray knew Pete Peterson just blows my mind. And that card that I found, that Moray was at that institute, and this is insanely awesome, actually. So I really appreciate everyone for coming. Thank you, for sure.
May I say to remark?
Absolutely. Okay, and Chris, this is Pavel Osmira, who has the protons and neutrons as donuts, as toroids as well, too. Yes, absolutely, Pavel.
I would like to follow German scientists that try to transfer kinetic energy neutrons to electricity. It's very new technology.
Okay.
It is very future. And secondly, Mark, I would like to say to you that I try to send you my new paper and some programs, but I was not successful. I sent it through King and Brandon today to repeat this invitation to this meeting.
Oh, okay. So
I don't know why.
You tried to send something to me or to Brendan?
I tried to send to you, but it was written. It was not possible to send you. I know why it is not possible.
Okay.
But I sent it this paper and program after invitation to this meeting to Brenman and King.
Okay, cool. Did you get it,
I
Brendan?
asked them they can send you
Yeah,
because
absolutely. And I'm going to send it to Moray and Chris as well, too, for sure. Because your information is mind-blowing. I think you deserve the Nobel Prize for what you've done, because you've taken Ken Shoulder's research with electrons and done it with protons and neutrons and come up with this whole elemental chart that shows them as all these toroids, but they're counter spinning, like you talk about, right? There has to be counter rotation.
yes, in this case, it's very important the structure of graphene.
Graphene.
And together with silicon particles with many layers. That is main principle of this German strategy. And
Yeah.
but I try to find another way. I try to find a solution that will be cheaper.
Okay.
It will be very important because it is very important how we can receive through these very thin layers. It is only 10 layers of graphene with some special condition that are created together. And
Right.
that, but the problem is that trying to send show us the results,
Yeah.
but they don't have it, and they sent it to South Korea and China. I don't know because German scientists have some problem because they have this structure have patented, but they have some problem how to receive the money from abroad to them that can support the research.
Yeah. Wow.
I know they have some problem through high bureaucracy.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's very cool information for us.
I think because I have very good graphene structure that I presented in my paper.
Yep.
For me, it's very important. They try to explain this principle, but they haven't such model as I presented graphene. I think it's very important how we can find a solution for this transformation of kinetic energy to electricity.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
It can be covered, for example, on the car carrossery on the top, because it is very clear. It will be necessary to have so many batteries that can be energy come from universe.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. From the 0 point.
I think it is better than solar energy because it's necessary. That must be sun during the night. It's impossible.
Yep.
The same problem with wind generators because necessary there must be strong wind. Atom energy is problem. How to what we can do with the rest after this we receive this energy, but this problem, this transformation of kinetic energy of neutrinos, I think it is. I think it can be cheaper, and and I think it has a good future.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just another source of free energy or 0 point energy, essentially. Yeah. Totally amazing. Well, thank you, Pavel. Yeah, and I will definitely get your information to both Chris and Moray. I think I've sent some stuff to Moray already. And again, thank you for being here, all of you guys. This has been wonderful to get everyone together, but to to find out that you already knew Pete Peterson,
Yes.
Moray, was incredible. Yeah, and
Yes,
yeah,
I sent you some information what this German scientist, the result, what the state is now, because they every month send me what is new, but they promise that we'll very soon can something that can be sold, but that only promise that can I register to buy the product.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I decided to find my way and be quicker than them.
And Pavel, you teach material sciences, I think, at an institute. Is that correct, in Czechoslovakia?
No. My hobby is informatics and automation,
Yeah.
and physical chemistry is my hobby. And
Oh,
now
okay.
my hobby is for me more important because now I'm in pension, and I now have time enough. If I were teacher, I have no time because I must teaching process.
Yeah.
And now I can solve this problem and can create this new type of this problem of energy that is on the figure that is on this from King.
Yeah. Yeah. And just before we end here, maybe Chris, you could talk a little bit about your business relationship with Ken Shoulders, perhaps?
Well,
I don't understand what.
Oh, I was talking to Chris to yeah.
Yeah.
well, you know, Stavatti was given a lot of information from Ken, and we were co-developing technologies more focused towards propulsion and the EVO technology, as well as nuclear remediation, treatment of nuclear waste.
Yeah.
Since he passed away, we've been continuing that work, the fundamental research, the design, and the application of that technology. And of course, Ken had he had one approach that focused on something that everyone could theoretically go to a Home Depot and build a device to demonstrate the charge cluster technology, and that's outlined in some of his works that are available for download. And so I know there's a few different sites that have his papers that you can go ahead and download them and take a look at his work. And we have a number of them, and that's
yeah, because you sent me a big file. Is it in that big file that you sent me?
I think so. Yeah, I think all of that is in there. And I know he had his own webpage that had a link to these files. So just from the business standpoint, I mean, of course, we extensive agreements were put together, and this was an ongoing discussion over the years. I mean, it really began probably in the 2005 timeframe, the business side of things.
Wow. Okay. 20 years.
Unfortunately, he passed away, and so we continue forging ahead, and we'll be happy to point towards Ken with any particular breakthroughs that apply to his section. We have kind of different, I'd say, different routes that we're going with respect to technologies. Some is based on Ken's work, some is based on the work of others.
Oh, okay.
We kind of want to give credit where credit's due. So
yeah, definitely. And I know that I've heard you talk in the past about some of the engineers or some of the people from Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works and such that retired. Did they come to work for Stavatti?
We've worked with a lot of those people in the past, yes. And actually for our airliner project and for our SM-31 Stiletto, which is a big project right now, we're competing for the U.S. Navy jet trainer.
Yep.
We've been bringing people on, and we're posting for new hires early next year as well. So a lot of people from Lockheed, we've been doing a lot of interviews. Really, since September, we've been interviewing and recruiting, And of
Nice.
course, at the air shows, at some of the displays we've had a lot of people submit their resumes. So right now our target is to bring on about 500 people over the next 12 to 16 months.
Okay.
Really supporting the airliner, supporting the Stiletto, and supporting our Razor project. So
Yep.
lots of people, lots of Lockheed people, lots of Boeing people, some Northrop, and a lot of folks. Number one question we have is, do we have an internship program? And so that's one of the things we're putting together. So
Oh, you are putting an internship program together.
yeah, a more substantial one. Yeah.
That is truly amazing, very amazing, and I can hardly wait for you to come back and tell us more about everything. So again, thank you guys all for showing up. This has been wonderful, and like next time we'll get John in here as well into the mix, and it'll be cool to hear more Ken Shoulders stories from John, and the fact that it still blows me away that he knows Pete Peterson. I'm glad I put the picture up because wow, right?
So we're going to stay on after we say goodbye. We're going to stay on.
Yeah, you can end the recording, and so we'll say goodbye. Thank you for everyone now. Yeah, and.